Hi everyone, I'm Scott Logan, CMO at Amplify, and welcome to Amplify's AI for CX Virtual Summit, where we're bringing you some of the latest insights and best practices around AI and the customer experience. At Amplify, really quick commercial, we unify data from all your structured and unstructured data, voice, chat, email, chatbots, CRM, even internal tools and internal systems into one single view of performance. With this one view of the data, Amplify delivers role-specific insights and AI-recommended best actions. From auto QA to AI-powered coaching and gamification, over 10,000 teams worldwide use Amplify to boost productivity, improve customer experience, and drive better results in support, collections, sales, and others. So before we begin, we'll get started with some event details. Please chat your questions in the Q&A section, and if you want to chat them, you can chat them to us as well, and we'll go ahead and bring those questions into the presentation and address them, and then we'll also address any further questions at the end. We'll also provide a link to everybody with a landing page as a video, the materials from the slides, and a quick blog summary of the session itself. With that, let's get started. This session is titled From Hype to Help, Evaluating and Applying AI Where It Matters in CX. This is brought to you by Nick Richards, the Customer Experience and AI GM at CXponent. CXponent is a solutions and strategy advisory firm that simplifies complex technology and process challenges into clear solutions. They empower organizations to make confident, transformative actions and achieve their goals with confidence. Nick himself has spent his entire career consulting contact centers with AI, workforce technologies, best practices, and is passionate about helping his clients achieve profound results through programmatic strategies. So, with that, welcome, Nick.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Thanks, everyone else, for joining. Scott is dropping in a poll for you. We're going to have one poll, look at the results, and then we'll have another one in a moment. So please look at that poll because that's going to help us with kind of tailor the conversation a little bit.
Yeah, where are you at with your organization's AI strategy? The options here, we are pros, we have a solid foundation and have some wins. We're just getting started, but don't know where to start yet. And we're just learning how to spell AI. Haven't even quite started yet. I think maybe that one, given the results coming in already, is probably the least favorable since we are well beyond, at this point, understanding where AI plays. I think that there's, with the Gen AI conversation and developments, we're well on our way there.
So while we're waiting, I've been really excited about this topic because, as Scott mentioned, everyone's talking about AI. It's an imperative from many boardrooms to infuse AI into the organization. But people are really struggling with how to do that. If you go to airport, bookstore, something, you see the magazines, look at the business magazine section. Try to find one that doesn't mention AI on the front cover. Companies know they have to use it, but there's not as much understanding of how. And everyone's just inundated with these sales pitches from vendors that all sound the same. And the lines of distinction get really blurry. So really excited to dig into that today. All right,
Yeah,
so here are the results.
Yep, we have the results. One of the things that was brought up is that there are so many different, like, very niche applications of AI. And could ChatGPT do all of them? Probably. However, to get the results that you want of the thousands of AI vendors, you probably can get a head start by choosing the one that most aligns to the challenge that you're trying to overcome and fix. So the bookends here have 0%. No one's really pros, but everyone is well on their way down the path. And then it's pretty much an even split amongst having a solid foundation all the way down to they're just getting started.
Yeah, and this is really indicative of what I've been seeing as I'm engaging with clients and friends in the industry and just talking with people. Very few have really mastered it. So I think everyone in this audience, really, this is the audience segment this conversation is focused on. So I think it's going to be great. Really, my goal for all of you today is really to have better understanding, not just of where AI will help and apply in your CX initiatives, but where you can apply the time, attention, energy drive those greater results from your investments.
All right. So for the next and last poll here, just to get us framed up correctly, what's the biggest challenge your organization faces when implementing AI and CX? Let's put your money where your mouth is. What are you actually working on? And to the point of the first opening keynote, don't know the right use cases. I think everyone is aligning to those specific challenges that they're looking for. Maybe there's a few that don't know the right use cases because there are so many. As that starts to tick up a little bit, we'll wait about another minute. And I guess, Nick, in your world of seeing a lot of different AI vendors and being basically vendor agnostic and applying the right solution to the right challenge at the right company, are people coming into it knowing what they want to do already, or are you helping guide them down this path of what do we even do?
Some of each. We have some clients that have very specific use cases identified and need help matching the tools. I think the majority of folks are needing help across the board. And a big theme that we're going to talk about today is what forms that help comes in. So we're going to talk a little bit about that reality check of where we are, right? We're going to talk about changing that thinking, why that focus on outcomes first thinking matters in your ability to be successful in these investments. And then we'll help define that structured, pragmatic path forward. Now, in this part, frankly, it doesn't matter how mature your organization is. Getting that path forward, your organization, regardless where you are in your maturity level, you're going to find value in certain areas of this. You're going to need to invest in some parts of that path. You may have already mastered some, but I think overall, the end to end will apply to everyone in every industry at every phase of their evolution with AI.
Exactly. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. As we see the results here, the first two answers don't know the right use cases and lack of in-house expertise. They probably played together a little bit. And then difficulty integrating with existing systems. This is where finding the right solution that has the right application and programming of Gen AI in order to get what you want is really key. So, like at Amplify, when we go in and integrate systems, it's all about the data. This is the most important part. That's odd that folks are finding the integrations is hard because that's basically the bulk of our implementation is making sure that you're connected to all the data, even if they're flat files, and making sure that data gets updated regularly. And it's not just with your interaction data, it's your CRM data, your in-house data, your HR systems for rosters and things like that is super important. Any commentary you want to add to this, Nick?
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that one, honestly, because it is the number one objection I hear, data integrations. I think the reality of that is very different, and that's something I really want to touch on in one of these steps here. But it is what I see. The number one objection is how do we access our tools? How do we access our platforms? I think the answers to it are simpler than many might think,
All
right?
right, with all that set up complete, let's get into the content here.
Good deal. All right. So the quick reality check, as I mentioned, often we're trying to solve problems and we're trying to apply AI to use cases based on what the tools are capable of. Far too often, we're reliant on the vendors or their sellers tell us where we need to apply the tools, where do we need to look for value. Challenge is those are typically their product strengths. They're not necessarily aligned with the needs of your organization, right? That lack of alignment to your needs result in failed projects, wasted investment due to a lack of impact, right? So some interesting metrics here. While 81% of service organizations are using AI, less than 25%, it's less than 30% of all of them have scaled AI to that meaningful impact. Okay. So 39% are struggling with identifying the right use cases. And we saw the similar result in our survey here a moment ago. And as a result, 85% of those pilots are under-delivering on the promises that they expect to achieve with them. It's because these AI initiatives really fail without purpose. When you're reaching for vague goals, you realize misaligned outcomes. You fall short of what you hope to achieve from that. And that technology or feature first thinking and application to problems is really not allowing you to focus on those outcomes first. So we want to shift that thinking outcomes first scoping before you do anything else. Okay. And then again, as the survey warranted, lack of integrations, governance skills, stakeholder buy-in. I would also add to this actually lack of the operational model around it, right? So a lot of reasons why things fail. Our hope is that through this conversation today, you're going to get a little bit more clarity on where you need to focus those investments and time. Now, that focus on needs rather than on features or technical capabilities. Now, if you do this right, it can unlock and deliver some very real, very experienced value. So some examples that we've seen, CSAT can rise 30 to 50%, major impact to your business. That average handle time is falling 20, 60%. I've even had clients that achieve greater handle time decreases than 60%. And that agent capacity growth. Now, all of these things mean not just less cost to do the operations, cheaper cost per contact, but they also have related benefits, such as improved customer retention, your revenue. You're also providing a more rewarding job to your agents who are going to stick around longer. They're going to get better at their job, and they're going to add even more value to your clients. So when you're doing this, when you're really focusing on those needs, not just the features, you're really putting the AI at full throttle so it can achieve much more quickly. Now, needs go beyond just the functional needs of your organization or those use case needs. People often forget that there are needs such as how you're actually paying for the solution, what the cost and consumption model looks like with that, which really materially impact your ability to measure value from that, and it prohibits your ability to grow. There's also a number of different ways where you can provide controls to your users, whether that's through low code, no code interfaces, whether it's managed services. And then the enhancement of the application. How are you spotting where you need to change, tweak, and refine things? Some tools are manual, some are completely automated, some are assisted human in the loop. I'm going to go into a little more details about these later on. Also, this presentation that I've developed for you, it has a lot of content in it. I'm not going to hit absolutely everything. It's intended to be something that's left behind for you to refer back to later, dive a little bit deeper. So we're going to hit it at a high level, but just know that the details are available for you moving forward. All right. So let's get in that framework. So first, clearly, we want to plan. Again, mentioning the leading with features and capabilities instead of business needs is that fire then aim philosophy, and that's wrong. So we want to aim then fire, but we want to plan. We want to start with that outcome and then identify the use cases that support those business outcomes. Clearly, right? Selection. Yeah, we're going to identify the right tools, duh. But people often neglect to consider what resources are internally, financially, what skills are needed. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then as you deploy, you're going to run very high impact pilots, things that show that you can deliver on that value, but show the organization's readiness to be successful with this. And then finally, are you going to evolve? Are you going to grow the adoption? Are you going to prove value through this continuously? This is not just a turn it on and forget about it thing. This is something that's very much a foundational capability that helps you continually add value as you move forward. All right. So we're going to start with some of these use cases. Now, the four categories here are a lot more common and prevalent. If you look at studies that show the top use cases of generative AI, they're all on here, right? Something like 60 or 70% of those top use cases are contact center customer service use cases. So I'm going to hit those first, but then we'll talk about some other options and ideas. Clearly, the big ones, agent assistance, right? So things that improve your agent's ability to be effective and efficient while they're supporting calls, contacts, right? Things like automating those wrap-up, providing a summary of the call to the agent, automatically inserting that into your CRM or ITSM or whatever systems they're in, reduce the amount of time the agent is spending doing work, and allow them to move on to the next activity faster. Okay. Things like real-time agent assistance bring more information, more tools and resources to the agent in the moment, so they spend less time looking around, less time digging, right? Whenever you call into a contact center and you hear the term, sorry, I'm having issues with my system today, often it's a lack of agent training. It's not system delay usually, sometimes it is, but often it's a lack of training and ability of that agent to actually get the task done that they need to. What we're trying to do here is give them the tools they need when they need it. And this makes that agent's job easier, makes it more fulfilling, rewarding. Those agents are going to stick around longer. Okay. That moves us into performance analytics. similar theme here. So performance analytics comes in predictive analytics, which is helping to understand those trends and what customers are needing from us, why they're calling us and contacting us, and to help better equip those agents to manage it, right? It's also providing opportunities to know where we might need to lean into automation to help decrease that burden on our people. And then things like automated quality management, quality assurance, performance management. These are ensuring that the agents are doing the right things. They're ensuring that the agents are properly trained, skilled, and it allows you to go augment those agent skills and help to make your agents better prepared. This is not policing, this is enabling, this is empowerment. When you do this right, your agents are much more rewarded and they're going to stick around longer. And as I mentioned earlier, they stick around longer, they continue getting better at their job, they continue providing better service and care to your clients, and they do it more quickly, more efficiently. Ultimately, your costs decrease and the value you get from that rises.
There's
Okay.
a
Next question.
there's a really
Mhm.
quick question on the categorization of what basically solutions you should look at for each of these. I know that for us, we get that question a lot where, Amplify is good at the two right ones, performance analytics and CX optimization is where we are at live. And then you have the agent assistance and automation. Maybe that's more of the CCaaS platform versus a CX platform. Could you maybe go into that just a little bit? Is this a good connective tissue between what buckets of categories to look at for which types of challenges you're trying to face? Or
Yes, that's a good question here. So as you look at the technologies, we'll get into that evaluation again more in a second. But generally speaking, any of the like the CCaaS, UCaaS products, the routing solutions, they will have options for every one of these four on the screen. Okay. But I encourage you to evaluate whether or not those solutions are sufficient and customizable and can be tailored to your needs, whether they deliver the value you want to see from it. More often than not, as you look at the agent assistance and the true automation aspect of things, usually you're going to look to augment these, right? Because performance analytics tools out of box are great for basic quality, great for basic speech. Where they typically fall short is in the workflows around those, how you're orchestrating and bringing these things together to drive a real impact on the human behavior, and also how you're getting those insights that will help you pinpoint additional investments in the future. So the options generally are a CCaaS product, an off-the-shelf product that's known to work with that, or frankly, build it yourself, right? Using some of these engines and other things. Pros and cons to each. I think for many organizations, it's a process of elimination in that order. Look at what the native solution is. If there are gaps or shortcomings, then you go searching for those bolt-ons. I would also encourage everyone, before you're just happy with what's native, what's available to you natively out of the box, I would explore some of those bolt-ons to see what else may be out there, what else may be available, to see if those really are things that benefit you driving those real outcomes that you're wanting. All right, then the next section of use cases is the automation. This is what we're all familiar with, bots and AI, and this is the way everyone thinks of, right? So these are things like the frequently asked questions. The FAQs are usually one of the lowest barriers to entry, the easiest to execute on, and they do tend to have a pretty significant impact on the total deflection, the total containment of most contact centers, right? And then things such as scheduling payments. But the goal of these automation capabilities is empowering your customer, helping them help themselves, helping them get to the answers, questions, tasks they need more. Then finally, CX optimization. So this is a little bit more of an advanced topic, and this does require more integrations, more data, et cetera. But this is getting to where you're personalizing and tailoring the service and self-service and the experience of any client, customer individually. It's also enabling you to be more proactive with how you engage with them. So rather than waiting for that contact, let's reach out to this person proactively to let them know of an issue and give them a solution before they've needed to ask. All these things, they're all exclusive of each other, but they all start to build upon each other as well. Now, moving on beyond those, because those were the most prevalent, the low-hanging fruit, the easy ones that everyone needs to explore, here's some guidance on how you can evaluate use cases to spot some of those that are a good fit, right? So look for those high-risk, high-containment ones. All right, I'm sorry, low-risk, high-containment opportunities. Those that are safe, you're not getting into security implications, trust, compliance risk, but they have a high return on terms of containing interactions. High volume, high frequency. So these are the things that are 40, 60, 80% of the total calls into your contact center. They occur regularly. Those are very much low hanging fruit, especially if they're not complex interactions, they're just frequent ones. The agent productivity boosters, these are the ones that reduce that cognitive load on the agent. The goal here is not eliminating people, it's just helping them do their jobs better. You want to find a measurable customer impact, CSAT, wait times, those things that actually show that can be measured, that show that your customer is having a better experience with you, which leads to increased customer loyalty, earn revenue, et cetera, decreased churn. Low cognitive load, high time drain. So these are the things that are mind-numbingly simple for agents, but they make their job feel like a bog. It's a drain because they keep answering the same questions and doing the same task over and over all day. These are the things that you might outsource to overseas contact centers or something because you don't need highly skilled agents to do those. Those are absolutely ripe for AI use cases because they have a significant return on investment that's very easy to drive and measure, but it also has a much deeper and more profound impact on your people and your agents and their ability to do their jobs better. Look for where current performance gaps exist. And I would say also with this, there's those where providing higher quality information more consistently is really important because often, frankly, rules driven machines are better at providing the same answer over and over again than a human is who may be having a bad day or a good day. Okay. And then finally, look for those that are scalable with data. Look for scenarios where you have a lot of data, a lot of history, a lot of transcripts or something else like that to really coach, train, and tune the bots so that they can get to value more quickly without as much care and feeding. A note about data, because we often hear garbage in, garbage out. And frankly, this frustrates me because when you look at the nature of data that we need with conversational AI, often it's not that much data. Yes, it's good to know who the person is, maybe their order information. Generally, you're looking at 2 to 3 pieces of information or pieces of data per call. Usually that's pretty easy to glean within your CRM, in your other systems of record, or by tapping into multiple systems of record. Usually that's pretty simple data. This is not looking at broad, massive data models. Okay? This is not data-based AI insights, right? Yes, we can do that. Solutions like AmplifAI, they have that that's productized, but it's not as reliant on your data structure necessarily. We can get big wins from that. So focus on conversations rather than insights, because once you do that, garbage in, garbage out mentality does not apply, and you can get some very big wins with very few barriers.
Okay,
Okay.
we have a few questions that have come in. First one might be a quick one. Can you clarify when you mention contact centers, are you talking about modern CCaaS platforms, Five9, Genesys, TalkDesk, etc., or more on legacy on-prem systems, Cisco via Mitel?
All of the above. Doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the difference in the CCaaS versus the legacy platforms, they're all doing the same thing. They're routing calls, right? The biggest difference is that CCaaS platforms, generally, they're evolving faster. They're getting patched, updated, and things much more quickly, and they're much more capable and ready to support those APIs and other integrations. That does not mean that if you're stuck on a premise platform that you're not able to integrate, your option, you may not have as many options, but you do still have options available, especially for the big three, Cisco via Genesys. There were many middlewares or other third-party products that their entire business was integrating with those in a way that's easy. So there are many off-the-shelf products that can simplify that complexity of your integration. So that's not a barrier.
Yep. This one goes along with that. We have data across many systems. Most of them are difficult to integrate with. Does that prevent us from any of these use cases?
That's very much the same answer. No. And I think we saw in the survey results that was the number one barrier.
Yeah.
The reality is there are so many solutions, and these are some relatively large companies that do nothing except integrate 2 systems together. That's all they do. So there are many off-the-shelf products, especially if you're on a Salesforce or Oracle or one of those SAP, some of those more common systems. There are entire ecosystems of middlewares and integrations, connectors that plug in with those where you don't have to do the development. So you buy the off-the-shelf product, it has all the APIs and integrations plugged in, and it acts as that translator in the middle between this AI platform, the CCAS platform, whatever, and your backend systems of record. So they can do the integration often within 30 minutes, an hour in many of these cases, because it's an off-the-shelf product. It's not a bespoke development. And you can get to value much more quickly using those than trying to go do a bespoke integration. Also, many of these solutions have integrations for some of those products. And that's actually very important and valuable once we get into selection. That's an important thing to look at and evaluate is what systems does this vendor integrate with out of box? Do they have a connector or do they have a custom development approach? And I would say that's the order in which you want to prioritize those. First, do they have the integration out of box? Second, do they have an ecosystem partner that has an off-the-shelf and integration? Third, if not, what's the level of effort to do a bespoke integration?
With us at Amplify, we very much focus on it doesn't matter what type. We have hundreds of legacy or out of the box for legacy or CCAS and other back of house systems. But when I first got here, I asked, what's the most popular integration? They say custom integrations, flat files, legacy systems. And that seems to be where people are layering over AI because it's not a huge rip and replace. It's just adding that level of intelligence you didn't have before. So evaluate that very deeply on what are you getting out of that. The last question for this section looks like how would you distinguish Amplify solutions versus other automated AI platforms like Calabrio or Posh, which you addressed on your previous slide with QM versus integrated data sources and so on. I think that on the Amplify angle of this, it's a matter of finding the solution that addresses the exact problem that you're trying to solve. So maybe you think, oh, there might be a workforce management with scheduling problem that you have, but really the bigger issue, we actually had a conversation about this with a prospect recently. The bigger issue was the actual coaching, performance management, leveling up your level of quality of interactions because the AI agent was taking all, and the self-service advancements were taking all of the easy transactions. So now they actually needed to have better training for all the reps because they're handling a much higher volume of the more complicated solutions. But if you really do only just need scheduling management, that types of things, then you would maybe go with a Calabrio type solution. So it's really finding and focusing on the challenge and the business objective or business outcome you're looking for and working backwards from that instead of saying, oh, traditionally I would go and get this type of a solution. With all the advancements now, using someone like Nick's expertise where he's agnostic, CXponent's agnostic, they have that detailed vision beyond what everyone's websites say they do to identify what it is you need to get to the outcome that you're looking for. I'll just end it with something that came out of the second session yesterday where Amazon starts with the press release. What do they want to have the big wow factor to be at the end of the day? And then even work backwards from that to find what they need to bring on or processes they need to change to get to that outcome.
Yeah, and that's a great segue into our selection, the second phase, because it is the what tools do you need? And it's not which tool is better, it's which tool fits our ability to execute and which one addresses our unique needs and goals more effectively. And I want to very quickly separate when you're looking at like conversational AI. So those things that are managing the bots that manage the conversation, the chat GPTs of the world, right? I want to separate those from more of the quality performance management AI for a second. When you look at quality performance AI, there's very much, it's about matching to your workflow and your integrations, period, right? The products are, the workflow is a core aspect of how quality management is implemented, executed on. Same with performance, same with speech analytics, right? When you look though at more of the conversational bots, where we're doing chat bots, we're providing real-time assistance to agents, and we're trying to conduct interactions in an automated fashion, or even just doing intent-based routing, right? I got an insider tip for you. They're all the same. They're all built on the same platforms. They're all built on OpenAI. They're all built on the same models under the hood. Many of them will tell you they have their own proprietary models. The reality is, all the conversational chat solutions are built on the same products. So When they try to tell you they're better, or they're different, or they're using all these models, alarm bells should go off. That means they're the same as the rest. Okay. So what does matter then? What matters is how that fits in your operations. And this is where they diverge and do the things very differently. Right. So I want you to encourage to look at how you're paying for the value. Right. So there's many pricing models out there. Some are based on per interaction, just straight cost per interaction. Some are tiered based on bundles of interactions. Some are total usage. Some have platform licensing, named users. Now, this affects how you scale and you forecast your cost. So as you're growing, no one just puts this stuff in place and never touches it and the usage stays steady state. That just simply doesn't happen. Okay. So if you're growing or even if you're shrinking, you need to understand how you're paying for that value and evaluate the vendor's pricing and consumption model structure against your needs. Okay. Second, you're going to look at that development integration flexibility. So the tools for managing the solutions once they're on, very widely. Consider the skills of your team. If you have a very strong DevOps shop, you may be well suited to build your own DevOps sort of approach. Most customers fall either in kind of the co-build or they need the low code, no code sort of tools. And then there's some other options out there that are fully managed where you don't have to do any of this. The vendor themselves does it. You don't have to touch it. You just get the report at the end of the month. Consider the skills of your team, not just where they are today, but where your organization is heading. Consider what it takes to really get more out of this, not just to solve today's problems and challenges. Consider what your challenges may be for tomorrow and how you can match those solutions and skills to that. And then to that point, looking at it over time, scale up, scale down is important. How frequently you're going to change things is also critically important. So it may be that you don't change the experience very often. You're just needing to tune and refine. Great. It may be that you're constantly tuning, that you're daily going in there and changing your experience flows for your customers. Those are very different tool sets. And you need to understand the way you're doing it and that the tools that those vendors and solutions bring to you rather than just evaluating on their features. Okay. Now, what resources do you need? Some interesting stats here. There's the concept of the 67% skills gap. And this is that 67% of CX leaders reported a lack of in-house skills as the primary challenge in their AI projects. This is not just from only the Gartner report. You see this recurring theme in every one of those business magazines I mentioned. They all talk about the lack of skills, the lack of technical skills knowledge, the lack of operational abilities to apply that to the use cases, and the lack of change management and managing and capitalizing on that cultural change within your organization is prohibiting growth, right? So here's the recommendation. Focus on a cross-functional team that involves or consists of operations, IT, and CX owners, right? You also want to find yourself an executive sponsor to do this. All of these efforts should have a cross-functional team spanning those three categories. You want to get into the governance, but I would caution you that you're never going to solve every potential problem in this category, right? The goal is directionally to make sure that the posture for these issues is appropriate, relevant, and sufficient, okay? But again, you're not going to solve every question around the gate. Many of those governance issues are going to be resolved as you grow because you're not going to know what they all are right now, okay? What are those skills in the people, okay? Really, it falls into those three categories: technical, CX ops, and change management. So technically, these are the hands-on engineering skills. These are the ML engineering skills. Prompt engineering is becoming a very significant trade and skill to have. And then those integrations, the developer capabilities, right? Within CX operations, you have a lot of use case scoping, the ability to basically take business pains, translate that into what AI can do, but also the ability to interpret things from the AI, to look at, oh, we have trending usage in certain interaction types. Customers, clients are starting to ask about these things more frequently, or we're failing in certain aspects of this. What is the business and the revenue impact of that? That ability to translate, connect the dots is critically important. And it's an important skill to grow and foster within your team. And then finally, that change management. So I cannot understate the importance of change management enough. Making sure the agents are trained, building trust within the various organizations, building trust with the users of these products, and then making sure you're staying on top of the ethical awareness and governance is really important. Also, you have to change management of how are we changing the experience of these applications as well. And this is where you're getting into prompt engineering, interpreting those outputs, so that you can continually do the care and feeding needed to get more out of these solutions. Scott, do
There's
we have
a
any other questions yet?
Yeah, there's a question regarding actually aligning to the poll question of lack of the skill sets needed. How do you acquire these AI skills?
Great question. All right. So with the technical skills, I mentioned that all of these solutions are pretty much the same. That means the training needs are simplified significantly, right? For those technical skills, it's someone watching videos, someone getting on-demand training. Most of these are free. This is not something we have to send them to an expensive boot camp or go to offsite training or devote a lot of their time. Most of them are free. They're very practical. They're very much in chunks of learning, right? And that learning can be tailored to the topic at hand. That learning can be tailored to how certain vendors that you've partnered with are implementing their versions and flavors of these. So the technical is frankly the easiest one of all this to accomplish. For those CX operations users, there are some courses and things out there that are focused on this, but a lot of this is learning through exposure. A lot of it is reading those business magazines. It is attending webinars and understanding how to translate these, how to identify those use cases, how to translate those pains into solutions. A lot of the CX ops training is really learning by exposure. And it's not like a technical certification where you've tackled all of this agenda. This is a very ambiguous, broad category that is unique to every single business, right? And so it is much to do as well about knowing your business and your organization as it is about the technology and the best practices operations, right? So this is very much a learning by exposure, but it is not a big lift. I think it is a very, if you, as we're going to talk about in a second, how you get started, given that approach, it is very achievable and should not intimidate you there. The last one, change management, is a little more tricky. Change management is very much trade, all right? Change managers are very different than project managers, right? And I would encourage you to invest in appropriate change management, whether that's from an outside consultant, whether you're hiring these people internally, or whether you're reskilling people. But these change managers are absolutely key and critical to the success you'll have in the future, both culturally and on the technology itself. Okay. All right. Let's talk about piloting. The goal here is that we're going to focus on one very well-defined high-value use case. We're going to set a measurable goal for what we want to achieve from that measurable, and then we're going to iterate fast. So we've identified that one clearly scoped use case. Here's an example, and it needs to be very specific, well-defined in scope. An example is a telco used post-call summary only for escalated calls, very narrow scope, but that reduced the agent wrap-up time by 38% in 3 weeks. So notice the measurable aspects of that. You have the scope of summarization tool and escalated calls. You have the measurable outcome of reducing the agent wrap-up time by X% in X time. So you're going to find those success metrics up front before you get started. Again, focus on quantifiable. So metrics like reducing average handle time and saving human effort tend to have the most traction. Improving CSAT is really strong when it's difficult, when it's not as much handle time and efficiency oriented, it's more customer experience. But also don't neglect things like revenue increase if you're in that sort of business. So my goal for you here is to look at what the senior most executives in your company, what are their core metrics, and see if any of those are something you can align directly to. And third, limit your scope, but not your ambition. So I've had clients over and over again be small on their perceived outcome for this. And I challenge you to be a little bit more aggressive in what you set those goals and targets at. So an example of this is that a healthcare insurer launched a bot for just one use case, only ID card reissuance, which was 12% of all their inquiries, but they deflected 70% of those calls in the first month. So 8.5% of all their calls were contained, deflected, didn't have to go to people because of this one simple use case. Major impact to your business. And then time box it. This one's super important too. So 4 to 6 weeks. Interesting study showed that those pilots, those initiatives that demonstrate that ROI in 6 to 8 weeks are 5 times more likely to receive that skilling investment. So this does something interesting. As you're looking at time boxing it, it helps you to limit that scope a little bit more so you can ensure that you're successful. It helps you to focus on what those quantifiable outcomes are, be more clear on those. And it also, because it's 4 to 6 weeks, it reduces that friction in getting started. Often what happens is people just leave it on. It may not be perfect, but it's a heck of a lot better than what we had. So they just leave it on and work out the kinks later. But your commitment is 4 to 6 weeks time box, and you're going to receive less resistance from that. And then again, this cross-functional team, enlisting stakeholders across these 4 categories and areas not only help you initially to get things done, but what you're doing is you're building the core aspects, that operational model of working among each other that just continue to support any future efforts and initiatives. Finally, don't build in a vacuum. You need to engage with the users, the consumers, maybe even your customers. Engage them in the process to get their feedback and become champions of this. All right. You'll see much greater adoption when you do, especially for those agent-facing efficiency initiatives. If they're providing feedback to you about their pain points and challenges, and those bolster and improve and help to execute on the outcomes you're trying to achieve, they're going to adopt it.
Really quick time check, about 5 minutes before we have to
Perfect.
close. Cool.
All right, and then finally, evolving, growing the value, getting more out of it. So how do you scale this? Once the pilot is successful, the interesting thing here, I said it earlier, but I want to say it again. You're not just proving AI works. You're not just proving the use case. You're proving that your organization is ready to operationalize on it. So in order to do that, in order to really truly execute on that, you want to find those modular playbooks. So as you're doing these things, consider how could this be reused in the future? And the goal here is to get to that 80-20 rule, where future initiatives, you kind of 80% of the framework done, 20% of that is just reusing, rinse, repeat. Don't scale everything, focus on the ROI, standardize those success metrics. I encourage you to look at efficiency and experience. Now, efficiency is clearly, those are things that it's reducing the amount of time and cost to support the same stuff, right? But experience falls into 2 categories. You have customer experience and you have agent experience. Do not underestimate the value of the agent experience when you're defending and justifying these efforts, because it has far-reaching, broad-reaching benefits across many other things. Okay, build those internal champions across multiple teams, specifically an executive level champion, aligning governance, document your learnings early. Integration, it came up again, that was the biggest barrier, right? So integrating with those workflows, tackle this one early, and then ensure that you're infusing those integrations into the AI, into the agent desktop, so that the agents are actually using them. Upskill the team continuously, refine your operating model. By the way, these last 3 are perhaps the most important of all. Continue to upskill your team, refine your operating model. As you go, you're going to become more clear as to who does what the responsibilities are, and you're just going to become more efficient. And then improvement in engineering is investing in that feedback loop so you continue getting more and more out of it. So here's my challenge to you. So we've defined that path from hype, what AI is, to help. So my challenge to you is to execute with clarity of vision. As you do that, you're going to start small. You're going to measure what matters. You're going to build momentum. I've included here an AI readiness checklist and then a lot more information on tool selection, the criteria you should be looking for. Okay. But you're going to use that AI readiness checklist. You're going to identify 1 up to 3. You're going to scrap 2 of them, keep that 1 pain point that you're going to run a pilot on. Run that pilot with the clear KPIs, measure the value, and then evangelize the message within your organization. Don't be humble with this. Make sure to get the loudest microphone platform you can to get the message out there. What this is going to do is people are going to start wanting to jump on the bandwagon. You're going to get a lot more resources, and the organization is going to benefit. Okay, real quickly, AI readiness checklist. The goal here is not scoring 5 on everything. The goal here is to be honest about where you stand, and then you're going to use your strengths and weaknesses here to prioritize or influence certain use cases. All right, and then I've included for you, to leave behind, some helpful information on the tool selection criteria. All right, so this is breaking down those common pricing models, how the usage scales and is impacted over time. This is looking at those various tool development approaches, strengths and weaknesses of them. And it's looking at who does the work. And then the last one is how these models and features are refined. I would encourage you to put a lot of weight into this last one, how the refinements occur, because that's where the real value is achieved over the long term. It's making sure that you can stay ahead of customer demand and you can react and you're agile and you're able to continue to elevate the game. Okay. Finally, thank you all for joining. I've included the QR code here so you can scan it, have a chat with us. As Scott mentioned, the Exponent really, we help our customers get a very clear vision of that path to value, help them execute on that, see it through, and then find new opportunities to do it again, right? So please engage with us. Happy to answer questions you have, happy to provide more materials, happy to engage with you guys to help you identify the right solutions, build that operational model, execute on that and find more big wins for you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nick. This is basically a guide for going through this process of enhancing your CX and how to apply AI in a successful way. So thank you so much. These slides definitely are incredibly valuable. So we will be emailing these out with the recording. It'll be a link to a landing page with all these resources. If there are questions regarding additional resources, please use this QR code to get a hold of Nick and he'll point you in the right direction. And thank you, Nick, for all those great insights and putting this basically a guidebook together for us. Appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Scott.
All right. Everyone have a great day. Thank you for joining, and we'll probably see you at another session.